Don't at me.
So I saw a topic. This is a complete 180 from sports,
Let's pivot.
but I did want to jump onto this because I was curious how y'all felt about this, and I'm afraid to even share it because even saying the name now gets you blocked on shit. So Twitter expects QAnon crackdown to affect 150,000 accounts across the network. So basically, QAnon, this big conspiracy theory, all this shit going on, anti government, yada, 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 but like hardcore right? Well, I guess the problem that with QAnon is that they'll harass people regularly, right? Like, I mean, if you're anti them, they just go after you and berate you to the point where you're just like, I'm just going to delete this shit. I guess it's Twitter seems to think it's abusive. So Twitter is now basically putting out efforts to block that. Much like we saw with what is it, Chris Jones? Is that the guy, the conspiracy theorist guy? The
Alex
crazy
Jones.
Alex Jones. Chris Jones. Who's Chris Jones? Alex Jones. And I mean, sure, I get it. In a lot of ways, anytime somebody speaks out against certain groups, they get harassed and berated. I get part of that. You're trying to protect people. I'm all in favor of privacy and protecting people. But what I think is kind of weird, though, I mean, is this not censorship? And I don't know anything about this movement. I know that it's bad, is all that I know about it. I can't tell you shit else about it. So it's not even pro any of these people, but it's all about freedom of speech. Where do we draw the line between censorship and when we need to cut people off? Censorship and when we're allowed to let people speak freely.
They're making shit up, so it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
real.
yeah. So a lot of companies. So on Thursday, I believe it's like Facebook, Twitter, Google, and some other. It's like four of the major tech companies. They're gonna be speaking, I believe, in front of Congress. So somebody really high up in front of government. And a lot of the backlash that they're facing is that they're allowing people to present a lot of false information. Um, and it is, and I think that not even the government knows at the moment. They're really trying to figure out what that gray area is. They're trying to define it because at the same time, many people feel like, hey, companies like Facebook and Twitter are not doing anything to prevent the spread of misinformation and fake news all over the internet, whether it be good or bad. It's fake. And so the government is having an issue with that now. And one of the things, I don't know if y'all saw today, that actually Twitter banned Donald Trump Jr. for 12 hours today for actually sharing a fake news video. And it's getting very serious. That, I mean, really,
Yeah.
on I think it's tomorrow or Thursday, the four major tech companies are going to be speaking, I believe, like I said, in front of Congress, and it's specifically this topic. So it'll be like very interesting to see what kind of develops in the next couple of days with
Oh, in front
security.
of who?
In front of Congress, or in front of like somebody in government, like dude, I'm not sure who it is. It's one of them chambers, but it's gonna be like on TV, and it's gonna be on C-SPAN. It's a pretty big deal because Facebook even delayed like their
Interesting.
earnings. So y'all should definitely. I mean, there's gonna be some good information that comes from that because they're really getting some like scrutinized for not doing any preventative measures to this false information.
Yeah, I would definitely like to hear about this.
Chance clearly beating around the bush. He'll get into why here in a second. On that note, I mean, I did see, of course, that's kind of the big reason why the whole Facebook, boycott, a lot of people are cutting out their spend to Facebook, to kind of stick it to the man. What I always thought seemed to be kind of a simple solution to all this, and I completely understand, and I'm very anti fake news because people will pick something up and then that's the law, black and white, there's absolutes, there's nothing in between. And I think that's the problem with almost everything that we have in this country stems from these absolutes, right? We more often operate in gray, but everything always seems to be black and white, at least in people's minds. What I always seem to feel like was
in more ways than one.
Yeah, exactly. what I always feel like was a simple solution to something like this is anytime you're going to share news, you have to share it from a reputable source. Maybe the social networks go and they vet, okay, these are websites that we feel are reputable, right? Or at least they're middle enough. I know that that's impossible nowadays, but at least it's not false, right? You might have facts with a certain editorial angle, but at least you've got facts. I think that's one way. Okay, if you're going to share news, that you have to prove it with the source. Now if you're just going to say something, then people get into should get in the habit of, okay, unless you can quote this with something that's BS, or it's not, it's not certified, it's not real, it hasn't been branded as fact. I think the only question you get run into is, once they start blocking certain networks, which I mean, we're seeing now, if any of those seem to be out of bounds or seem to be, okay, that doesn't seem to be one way leaning, but they're trying to be selective with who they let in, bitch about that. But at least then you don't have to worry about this problem with fake news and now making all these, laws. Like it would never have been a problem if people thought about this a little bit more ahead of time.
Yeah, but at the same time, we've never been in this situation before, and I think the difficulty that we face is obviously there's a lot of division in America, obviously, when it comes to our financials. So it makes it really hard even for a company to say, for example, who's going to get the approval, perhaps depending on who's the president at the time. Right now, probably CNN wouldn't get an approval to be considered real news because our president calls it fake news, So imagine all those small companies or all those local news that are really struggling right now. Like, who's going to really vouch for them to be able to stay alive? And even though they are providing good news, like, it's kind of like a difficult situation, kind of like on Facebook, like a lot of big companies are dropping out of working with Facebook, but at the same time, Facebook's not seeing that much of a it's not really hurting them that much because the advertisement really comes from companies that are local companies. Those are the people that can afford Facebook and Instagram advertising.
Yeah, no, I was saying, I agree 100% on the local part because they're the ones that can actually get bang for their buck. It's not Google where you have to spend thousands to even show up. And I mean, I get, like I said, it's impossible to say which ones are one way leaning or not, since they all have a lean. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find one source that doesn't have a bias. But I mean, I feel like there should be just, how do I say this? Somebody help me out while I'm trying to gather my thought.
Standardization,
yeah, more of a, I think the medium isn't necessarily the problem, the social network. I think it's more the source of the news that's getting fed in, because so much of it is speculation. And I think, maybe the medium kind of morphed us into these instant gratification parasites that we are now. But I mean, news, the reason I don't even watch ESPN anymore is they don't show highlights. They don't cover the news for sports. All they do is talk speculation. Every news channel you go to is all about speculation. I think it's more, I mean, it's a bigger problem for sure. It's a bigger problem of,
I think the problem is nobody reads articles. Like, nobody's down to read anymore. Like, nobody wants to.
That's the only way I get news,
Like, I don't mean like read as opposed to like watch TV. I mean like actually like not just scroll past something, but like let's click this link and read a fucking article. Like, and
it's the clickbait headline.
Yeah, and like I don't even like have Facebook anymore. Like, I don't have it on my phone. Like, I barely like go on Instagram. I don't go on Reddit anymore. Like, but I'm subscribed to New York Times, LA Times, Chronicle. Like, I'm on like news sites. I read a lot, and I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of what's going on in the world, and I'll read from different sources and everything. And I just feel like more people should just do that and stop, like, like those are called social media for a reason, because it's not called news. Like, you know, people can make an account on there, but anybody can do that. You know what I mean? Like, so if you haven't read an article or ingested news that wasn't via a social media platform in the last 6 months, you're not informed and you're ignorant, because you literally are only getting what has been produced to fit into an algorithm to like make sure that you just keep scrolling and it's literally like a dopamine thing in your head, and you just want it more and more and more, and you're never gonna actually read and find out what's going on about anything. But yeah, anyway, that's my bit on news.
There are a lot of different ways to try to approach it, right? And there are a lot of different challenges and complications with it. I mean, it just seems ridiculous that we live in a world where people are believing fake news and, like, you know, basing their lives around it. It's more of like the world's problem than the social networks problem.
Right.
But,
well, the social networks, I mean, they're making like, they don't care. Like,
right.
You know, it's not their responsibility. I mean, that's the thing, is like, that's the big question, right? Is it their responsibility? And it's like, kinda, right? Like, even if it's not their responsibility, it's like, if these tools are going to be out there and everybody has Twitter and everybody has Facebook and like, somebody needs to take responsibility. And that's why you have to get QAnon and stuff like that off there, because if you can get 5,000 people to believe any crazy thing, it's a problem for the greater good and the greater public and health of like, that's, you know, like 5,000 people. That's not, in the scheme of a country of 350 million. It's like, okay, like, yeah, that's not maybe going to change an election. It could, or something, if they are bad actors in a certain way. But you get 5,000 nut jobs to show up in one place, and that's how you get Charlottesville, and that's how you get like these, you know, it only takes one guy to drive a car into a crowd of people. If you can get 500 people to buy into this one nut job thing, then you can, like, real terror can happen. And that's why it's not censorship. It's like straight up when they are spreading false shit, and it's just like literally, you know, the subject matter is getting these people to buy into these crazy ideologies is based on false things or false science. Like, that's when, yeah, somebody's got to step in, and because it's for the greater good of the country and the world, really.